Hey everybody, my name is Jordan Herzog. I'm the pastor here, the youth pastor at New River Assembly of God Encounter Student Ministries. Just wanted to follow up on a couple things from Wednesday night. We've been talking about relationships and we've been spanning the whole spectrum. And specifically the last couple weeks we've talked about the dating relationships, the relationships that would be romantic between a girl and a boy or a man and a woman. And Wednesday night we really asked the question, should I be dating right now? And we approached that question and just asked some wise questions, some biblical questions, hopefully that will give you a better insight to whether or not you should be at this stage in your life. And to start out, I just want to do a definition of what we would call dating. A lot of people like to use different words for it. Some people use the word courtship, and some people use more courtship type methods, but they still call it dating, just because dating is kind of the universal term that is used in our culture today. The definition of this is it's the stage between being friends and engagement. So if you've been dating and you've been in a relationship with somebody, a romantic relationship for 6 months, I would consider that dating, right? If you're not engaged. If you're at that stage where you're just friends, you say we're just friends, and you want to avoid the title of dating, yet you'd totally be jealous if that guy or that girl was talking to other girls all the time. And you'd be jealous if they didn't like you anymore, and you have this mutual understanding. I consider that dating too. You're not fooling anybody, let's be real. But that would be the definition of dating. This practice as we know it today that we're calling dating, where guys and girls get into relationships with each other at a young age, sometimes junior high, sometimes all the way down even into elementary school, and then all the way up into high school too. This practice has really only been around as we know it for the last 50 years or so. The term dating was coined in the early 1900s, late 1800s, but the dating that we experience and that we see today has really only been around for about 50 to 80 years at the very longest. And what we see in statistics is the results of this type of relationship has been devastating. The results have absolutely been devastating. The divorce rate today is over 50%, and I understand that correlation doesn't always mean causation, but the fact is this type of going about relationships has trained people for divorce and trained people for unhealthy marriage relationships. So what I find so interesting is that the stats are no different in the church. In the world we're seeing a 50% divorce rate. In the church we're seeing just about an identical divorce rate. So it causes me to question and to ask, why is this happening? And I believe the conclusion I've come to is that it's because we're not going about it any differently. Christians, a lot of times, they just decide to go about dating just like the world does, but then they just put a little Christian twist into it, and they say, well, I've been praying about it and God says it's okay, and they just kind of try to throw the spiritual element into it. And the results of that have been just as destructive, and a lot of times more destructive than the way the world has been going about it. And I just believe there's a better way to do it. I believe there's a better way to go about these boy-girl, man-woman romantic relationships that lead to marriage. I think there's a way that will honor God better than how the world's been doing it, and even how the church has been doing it for such a long time. I believe that going about these dating relationships properly, number one, you need to wait until it's the proper time. If you're dating just to date and you have no purpose in it, and your purpose isn't to illuminate and discover whether or not this person would be a good candidate and a good fit for marriage, you're not going about it correctly. If you're dating just to date, you're just going around and hurting people and leaving marks on those people and taking marks upon yourself as well. So the first piece of advice I would say is, wait until you're at that stage where you're ready to consider marriage. If you're within a year or two of considering marriage and you've been out on your own for a little while, think about dating, think about getting into a relationship like that with different mentorship in your life and different advisors to help you go about the process. But wait until you're at that stage where you could consider marriage. Or else, there's really no point in dating. You're just going to hurt somebody, and you're just going to give parts of your heart away that you wish you didn't. And you're going to take somebody else into your future marriage with you that you didn't want to have. You're going to take a piece of them with you. That's just how it works when you get into a close relationship with somebody when it's not the proper time. The next thing I would say is that you need to begin to ask the right questions before you get into dating relationships. You need to ask yourself, am I spiritually ready to be in a dating relationship? You need to ask yourself, am I practically ready to be in a dating relationship that could potentially lead to marriage? Am I practically ready for that? Is my relationship with my family at a place where I would be ready for dating? I talk about how, you know what, if you don't know how to get along with your family and you have a strained relationship with your family, what makes you think that you're going to go about a dating relationship with someone of the opposite gender any better? You might be able to right away, you might be able to compartmentalize it and say that it's a different type of relationship. But let me tell you what, as time passes on and when you eventually marry some person, I've talked to many married people and they say this, reality sets in. And you know, it's a lot like having a mom or a dad or a brother or a sister. It's someone you live with, someone that's real, and it's something that's not romantic all the time. So if you don't know how to relate to your family and to serve your family and to treat them with love like the Bible teaches us, you really are in no place to consider a dating relationship. Work on learning how to serve your family. Your family is your training ground for your future marriage relationship. So really consider that as well. And then finally, you need to ask yourself, is it in this person's best interest for us to be in this relationship right now? The stats tell us that 99% of relationships that start in high school or earlier do not end in marriage. That's a very high percentage. You know, some people have said the stats are, when a Christian gets married, somebody that grows up in church, they have already been in 5 different relationships. 5 different relationships, pretty serious ones. And you know, I don't believe that's healthy at all. You know, to go into a relationship knowing there's a 99% chance that you're going to break up, because, like I said earlier, when you get close to somebody romantically and you share your deep feelings with somebody, you leave a part of yourself and you take on a part of them with you. That's just how it works, you know. And I call that they leave a mark on you, and you leave a mark on them. And the sad thing is, when it gets to be a close relationship and then you rip it apart, it's not just a mark, it's a scar a lot of times. And you end up crossing boundaries that you never wished to cross, and you end up crossing emotional boundaries, not just physical ones, but emotional ones that you never wished to cross. And that leaves a mark on you, that leaves a scar on you that you never intended to have. And then you take that into your eventual marriage. So really consider that. There's a 99% chance that it's not going to work. You really care about the person that you're wanting to date? Because if you really did, you'd be looking out for their best interest. Consider those questions. Are you spiritually ready? You know, self-control. Do you know how to love? Do you know how to serve? Do you have a good practical reason to be married? You know, do you have a job? I know some guys that think they're ready to date, but they don't even know how to tie their own 2 shoes when it comes to being responsible. You know, do you have a good relationship with your family? Do you have a good relationship with your family? It's your training ground for marriage eventually. Don't get in a dating relationship if you don't know how to serve your family. Then finally, is it in the person's best interest? Ask yourself this. Final thing to ask yourself. Would it be better? Could it be better if you just waited? Could it be better if you just waited? Are you really going to miss out on anything if you just waited until that proper time when you'd be ready? I would say no. You're actually probably going to gain a lot by waiting. You're going to grow a lot spiritually and be at a greater level of maturity, and you're really going to be looking out for that person's best interest. So let me encourage you with that. Next week, we're going to talk about some things that you can do practically right now to prepare for that time in your life. For some of you, it might be 15 years down the road. For some of you, it might only be 3 or 4 years down the road if you're one of the older students. So it's going to be great next week. Thanks for coming out. I'll see you then.